Before the Rings of Power, there were the Silmarils. Before Sauron, there was his master Morgoth. Before Aragorn and Arwen, there was Beren and Luthien. Join us as we explore Tolkien and all the ages of Middle-earth with your hosts from theonering.com, Jonathan Watson and Michael Grumbine.
Merry almost Christmas, everybody. It's
happy Advent.
Must we get into this right off the bat again already? I told you I didn't listen to Christmas music till after Thanksgiving. You had to one-up me with you didn't listen to Christmas music till after Advent started, which would have been last Sunday, correct? So
Advent started last Sunday, but we're not listening to Christmas music until a week before Christmas.
What?
Sorry.
That sounds sad.
No, actually, and then we listen to Christmas music for 2 weeks after Christmas as well, because that's the Christmas season.
3 weeks of Christmas music is like looking at looking like at an ice cream sundae bar and getting just the cherries on top. It's like you only got the very end of it. You don't have the whole. You don't get to enjoy it for all that time up through the middle of the. Anyway, sorry everybody. I digress.
Excellent. All right.
The fights that we have. Hey, we are back into discussing the changes between the Lord of the Rings and the film and the books. And we realize this is going to take a really long time. So I think we are definitely going to be doing something different come January with this podcast. And who knows, it might be years before we finish all the changes between the films and the books. And we'll have to jump into the changes between the Rings of Power and the books too. That'll just be one episode though. One word just says
everything.
So, but thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed last week's detour into talking about Tolkien's poem Noel, which was found in 2013 after a nearly 80-year loss. And that's had some great feedback to it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to get into two things today: Frodo's unexpected introduction, and one we like to call Gandalf the Headbanger. You probably know what that one is. Before we jump into that, guys, everybody, if you'd like to join us in our extended podcast where we get into more details about the changes Peter Jackson made to the introduction and talk about the things that Tolkien had and why maybe he didn't put them in, including like Ted Sandyman and the Gaffer and the parentage that we completely missed out on for Frodo. We don't hear anything really about his parents. Do we hear anything about his parents in the books, in the movies? Not the books. They're in the books. I can't think of anything.
Movies, no, we don't hear.
They don't talk about like how one of them drowned or something like there's nothing there. Yeah,
definitely not.
So we don't hear any. We're going to talk about that in more detail. And if you want to hear that, you can become a member at theonering.com/member and join us there in our Discord chat where you can ask questions and talk about this sort of stuff, and also get the extended podcast, which is about 15 to 20 minutes longer than this normal, incredibly brief discussion that Michael and I have every week. Brief and to the point. We never get long-winded at all whatsoever.
Brief for us, anyway.
So, all right, everybody, we are going to jump into the very first change that we're talking about. This is number 21, Frodo's unexpected introduction.
You're late.
A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins.
It's wonderful to see you, Gandalf.
Far too eager and curious for a hobbit. Most unnatural.
Before you came along, we Bagginses were very well thought of.
Indeed.
Never had any adventures or did anything unexpected. Whatever you did, you've been officially labeled a disturber of the peace. Gandalf, I'm glad you're back.
So am I, dear boy.
That's the Cliff Notes version of the prologue, and I know it was interspersed and cut in various and annoying ways, and you wanted to see more of it, because honestly, I feel like this might be the best part of The Lord of the Rings, is the entire time that we spend in Hobbiton in the Shire. And but what Peter Jackson has done here with the Fellowship of the Ring is, let's get this straight, with the theatrical edition of the Fellowship of the Ring. This is not the film edition. This is not, or sorry, it's the film, the extended edition. I don't know where I lost that word. This is what we first saw in December 2001 when it was released into theaters. And so the very first thing we see about hobbits, other than a little bit about Gollum kind of being hobbity, is Frodo reading, right? So this clip right here. It says the Fellowship of the Ring, and then we see Frodo reading, and then Gandalf comes in, and we get this whole bit about Gandalf, and Frodo asks him what news of the outside world, which is instead of Bilbo's prologue. They removed that from the extended edition, and they put in Bilbo's whole prologue in the extended edition. And this one, Frodo says, "What news of the outside world?" to Gandalf, and Gandalf tells him a little bit about what's going on. Oh, you know what? It's there to establish that the hobbits are hidden. Nobody really knows much about them. And there's a little bit more about Hobbiton right there. They travel through a little more of Hobbiton in the with Gandalf and Frodo discussing and travel through a little bit more of Hobbiton right there. And where the extended edition has a little bit more about Bilbo's queerness and Bilbo looking for the ring in his pocket. That whole scene it isn't in the prologue to the theatrical edition. So
the way I look at this is basically that Jackson had to, in his mind, shorten everything to give a brief introduction to the viewers of the world of the Shire and hobbits, and especially in the scenes that you put Frodo's relationship with Gandalf. So he wants to condense all that into, a minute or so of scene, minute and a half maybe, and that's what he does. And it's different from the book.
It is, because in the book we get some exposition about Bilbo, and we're told that Frodo was adopted by Bilbo when he was 99, and so there's this introduction to who Frodo
When
and
Bilbo was 99,
are.
not Frodo.
When Bilbo was 90, not Frodo. Yeah,
Right.
sorry. And then we learn more about the queerness of the Bagginses, and that whole business with the dragon, and that you have the Gaffer, Sam's dad, and Ted Sandyman discussing about the weirdness of the Bagginses and how Frodo's parents died in a drowning accident.
Right.
But it all establishes more of the oddness of Frodo and Bilbo, mostly Bilbo, but of both of them. Whereas in the film, what he establishes is the relationship between Frodo and Gandalf, because in the books, Frodo doesn't meet Gandalf, or we don't. They know who each other. They know about the other. They know who they are. Right? They've met before, but they don't meet in the books until after Bilbo disappears at the party, and Bilbo has actually left Hobbiton already. That's the point at which they first meet, and so there's a big difference.
Right. In other words, there's no long established friendship in the book between Gandalf and Frodo.
In the book, right? Yes, there's no. Yeah, it's not like they are. It's almost like Gandalf and Frodo are now the primary relationship, because they have to establish that first. Whereas Bilbo and Gandalf, right? It's an old relationship, but Frodo and Gandalf have a keen appreciation of each other. Gandalf asks Frodo things, Frodo asks Gandalf things, and there's a familiarity to them that there isn't in the books at all.
Right.
And is that any good? So let's talk about that, guys. Let's look at this first question then. Is it lore friendly? Is it lore friendly to have Frodo and Gandalf as the first relationship, as the most important relationship, as the established relationship that we get introduced? I mean, when you're talking about this is our time now, or this is the time that the movies takes place, the very first thing you see is Frodo. You don't see Bilbo. You don't get any information about what's going on. Okay, theatrical edition again, not the cinematic edition.
Right.
And so does that even, like in my mind, does that even change maybe the relationship that Frodo and Gandalf had and how we perceive it in the films rather than the books?
Well, so lore friendly. The books themselves, in the books, Frodo is of the hobbits. He's the main character, the primary hobbit around which you can make an argument Sam's the hero, but there's an argument to be made that Frodo is as well. I think we've talked about this before. There's actually 4 different arguments for 4 different characters being the hero of the story. And so there's the idea that visually theatrically we're going to center on Frodo's relationship with Gandalf, which he does have a close relationship with him, especially as the story goes on. The fact that we're going to focus on that, I don't see that as lore unfriendly. I do think that's lore friendly, and the focus on Frodo, instead of starting with Bilbo, starting with Frodo. It's not like Frodo, doesn't read books, and Frodo doesn't know about Gandalf, and doesn't, wouldn't, that whole conversation that he has on him with the cart. The friendship is probably being emphasized there. That part of it, maybe not lore friendly, But in the balance, that whole scene establishing Frodo's and Gandalf's primary relationship, I think that is lore friendly, not lore unfriendly. In balance, there are aspects of it which are not technically, but I think it does hold to the themes in the book.
I agree. I think I have no problem with this at all. And this goes back to my point, is that I feel like what Jackson really got right a lot was everything in the Shire. And this goes to the Hobbit movies too. The relationship that Gandalf has with the hobbits, right? Even the line of the fireworks, and in the book, Tolkien wrote, let me find it. Hence the excitement of the Hobbit children. G for grand, they shouted, and the old man smiled when they saw that logo, because they were excited about the fireworks, right? They talked about seeing the logo G for grand. And so Tolkien, Jackson put that into the prologue with those fireworks coming out of the back of the wagon. And so that's like one of those things where that's in the spirit of what Tolkien wrote. That's lore friendly, because that establishes that they loved Gandalf, and Gandalf kind of loved them too. And so having Frodo there first, I think it establishes it well. I have no problem with it at all.
Now, and like I said, technically, like there are elements like, was Gandalf known as a disturber of the peace? That joke that Frodo makes, no indication in the books that's the case.
True.
But it's within the spirit of the lore. The hobbits, especially the prim and proper hobbits, definitely looked down on Gandalf and Bilbo, because Bilbo was an odd bird and kept to himself and had adventures and things like that. So you could easily see it. So answer, yes, it is lore.
Yeah, I've just looked up the line about Gandalf. When the first thing that's said about Gandalf that Tolkien wrote in the first chapter is, his real business, Gandalf's real business, was far more difficult and dangerous than the skill with fire, smokes, and lights that he talks about there. But the Shire folk knew nothing about it. To them, he was just one of the attractions at the party. Hence the excitement of the Hobbit children. G for grand, they shouted, and the old man smiled. They knew him by sight, though he only appeared in Hobbiton occasionally and never stopped long. But neither they nor any but the oldest of their elders had seen one of his fireworks display, and they now belong to legendary past. So yeah, he wasn't a disturber of the peace, but I think that lends itself to the whole, there are queer things going on about Bilbo and Frodo, and having him be the relationship established with Bilbo and Frodo, that kind of brings that idea of the queer disturbances.
You meant Gandalf and Frodo, right?
No. Well, I mean, he has a relationship with Bilbo and Frodo.
And not Gandalf's necessarily relationship with Bilbo and with Frodo. Yeah. Okay, got it.
Right, is kind of odd. So.
Agreed. All right.
So is it lore friendly? Yes. Does the change make for better cinema? Yeah, I think so. Even though I feel like if you were going to do this in a long form, it might work better to take a little bit more time establishing some of those characters. But you're if you're going to do like a 10-hour Fellowship of the Ring TV series, I think you have to throw Frodo or Bilbo and Gandalf in the mix right off the bat. Now,
right.
Maybe the question then is, which is better? Is the theatrical edition better then as an intro than Bilbo's prologue in the extended edition?
It's better cinematically. Yeah. The extended edition, so many elements of the extended edition are attempting to just bring more of the book into the movies. But it's a tighter...
You say that as if it's a bad thing.
Oh no, I like them better. I like the extended edition better, but that's because my first love is for the books. Right. As cinema, it's tighter and it's better to do it this way. Not everything, like when Tolkien's writing his story, he's not writing for cinema. So there's going to be a lot of things that ways you can make changes respectfully that make it better cinema, as long as you stay true to the spirit.
Yeah, I agree. And this is definitely one of those cases. All right, last question. How much do you like the change?
Yeah, go for it.
I like the change cinematically. This might be my favorite change, and I feel like you get a really good idea of who the hobbits are through just by showing us and not like giving us the long prologue from Bilbo. Like you see them still, they're still walking through the fields of the Shire, they're still on the cart through the fields of the Shire. You still get an idea that Gandalf, there's a weirdness to him that people don't really trust about him, and so you get the queerness. I think he did incredibly well without bogging us down with details. And if you can say bogging us down with the details, it happens in the extended edition, sure, but we love those details. But I think as a cinematic, I feel like this change worked incredibly well. I loved the movie when it started it, and that's why it disappointed me so much by the end of it when all the characters ended up changing. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give this one a 5. Bam.
Wow, 5.0.
I can't do 5.1, so I'll give it a 0.0. 5.0.
Yeah, this is. I don't have anything bad to say about this change. I don't.
Yes.
There's. It's simply a change, as we discussed already, well within the spirit of the work, and it made better cinema. There's no reason not to give it a 5. I agree with you.
Wow. Okay, we're done. We got to stop. Like we're shills now for Peter Jackson. We've said that this change was perfect.
Yeah, it's my favorite aspect of modern culture is the idea that if you don't hate everything all the time, you're a shill.
Oh, right. I know. Yeah. Oh man, is this the first time that I've given things I've given things higher ratings than you? But yeah, all right, guys. We like the change. We thought it was lore friendly, and we thought it made for better cinema. Fight us if you disagree, because we're right and
Please do.
You're wrong. All right, let's jump into our second change, and that's going to be Gandalf the Headbanger.
Just tea, thank you.
Yeah, he banged his head. That was maybe the first moment. Let's see. Let's get that right here again. That was maybe the first moment where I realized
Just tea, thank you.
this isn't the Gandalf that I know. I was not a huge fan of that right there.
Looks like he's clipping us off there.
Oh, jeez. I mean, look, it was a funny moment, but I'm like, ha ha ha, oh, ha, 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 oh. But so the moment
what did you not like about it? Or are you just saying, oh, that's different from the books? If so, how? But if you don't like it, tell me how too. Why?
I don't like it because it establishes Gandalf as not being aware. That's a little bit what it felt like. And it made me it was that first pebble from the avalanche of issues that I had with the Fellowship of the Ring being different from the books. It's not horrible. I look back on it, it's a funny moment. It gets a good laugh every time. And it establishes that the Hobbit holes are small. You have to deal with it. It's completely different. And it makes a ton of sense. I have no problems with it being in the film as a film, but as being different from the books, I feel like it's that first small change that's indicative of much larger changes to come. Maybe that's looking backwards at it now too, and how I felt going into the films or watching the films for the first time. But
so this almost feels like negative member berries to you.
Wait, what's a negative member berry? Hold on.
Or memberry.
What?
It's that thing that people do in movies, and when you have sequel upon sequel upon sequel, where they do callback to, and I don't remember which is it. It's one of those adult cartoons, like a South Park type of thing, where they're using the callback to an old memory to sell the movie. So it's the remember this moment. So you have this member berry moment, and there's actually member berries in this cartoon that everyone references as a meme, which I didn't prepare beforehand, so I didn't look it up. But member berries are these. So for you, it's like a negative member berry. Like the whole point is your opinion is affected by your memory of a thing, rather than the thing that's standing on its own merits or not.
Right. Look, it's not the worst thing in the world, but we'll get into that. So let's talk about this. This one's going to be a little bit shorter. So is it lore friendly? I will answer this. No, it is not lore friendly in my opinion.
Okay.
Am I correct?
No, to answer this question, I am going to add to what you said, which was it gives us a vision of Gandalf as like this kind of clumsy old man. Not almost as if
unaware.
He hasn't been visiting Bilbo and hobbits for a long time. Like if you're a friend of the hobbits, you know when you enter their home that it's small to you, and so you're going to move appropriately. The fact that he's like knocking things around, knocking the chandelier around and hitting his head it just makes it silly. It makes Gandalf silly for the purposes of comedy. It's just physical comedy. And it's meant to get a laugh, and I understand why they did it cinematically. But Gandalf doesn't have that character. In fact, Gandalf is the character of the prophet character in and the wise in the books. It's not that he doesn't make some mistakes sometimes, as he did with Sauron, for example, in the books, but he's not klutzy. He's not a comedic character that runs into things because he's an old man or anything like that. So this is an inherent change to Gandalf's character. So I would also say no.
Yeah, and I think you couple this with panicky Gandalf when he comes back. Is it secret? Is it safe? It feels. Together, they create a character that I'm not familiar with from the books.
Right. Good point.
Yeah. All right, which is another change we're going to do in the future. Does the change make for better cinema?
In a way, yes,
first.
And in a way, no. So my ultimate answer is no. And the reason it does make for better cinema comedy, so the comedy element is improved, but at the loss of Gandalf's character that we just mentioned. So in balance, is it better or is it worse? I think it's worse.
I'm having a really hard time with this one because as a film, I like the moment. As a person who likes the books, I dislike the moment. Right? It was like that was where I went. Oh, is it made for better cinema? Could they have done something else? Could they have made him sit uncomfortably on a small hobbit chair, for instance?
Yes, exactly. Could they make him have turned around in that instance and put his hands on the beam and like gently lower his head under to step in to show you the size proportion,
right?
And Gandalf's care for the space. Yeah. Yes.
If they would have said, if he went like this and he went like, oh, like he realized like a memory, like I've done this before, I'm not going to hit my head again. Like something if he stopped himself.
Well, exactly. Like that's exactly right. You could have had that almost moment where then he sort of chuckles to himself and puts his hand out and ducks under the beam.
All right.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think it does not make for better cinema because you could have had even a similar effect without ruining Gandalf's character.
Yeah, agreed. All right. So how much do we like the change? How much do I like the change? Well, it's not a 50-50. My is worse than my ha. So I'm going to go, but it is funny. So there's got that. I'm going to go 2.4. I think it's not a great change, but it endears the character to people, even though I hate the way that they've made the character that is now endearing because he's stuck in a little hobbit hole, and that's what I would do if I was in a hobbit hole. And so you get that feeling of like, I know what it's like to be there. And they established that the hobbit holes are small still because a lot of people who saw the movies probably didn't fully understand that yet. It had to really be, drilled into their head. The hobbit holes are small. Hobbits are small. Let's make sure that they realize this. So 2.4. Yeah.
I'm a little more forgiving than you on it, but I'm about the same. I'm going to go 2.6.
Just on the positive side.
To me, in my headcanon scale, that's not the positive side. 3 is exactly the middle between 1 and 5. So for me, if it's above 3, that 3 is average.
Oh, that's yeah. I guess we're not starting at 0.
Anyway, here we go.
But yes, I agree with that. All right, so that's our changes, or that's our thoughts on that, guys. I bet a lot of people really like this moment. Do you think a lot of people really like this moment? I haven't had discussions with a ton of people to be like, hey, so what do you think of Gandalf's headbanging moment there?
Small change. This is a small change. It's not a big deal, but it doesn't really improve the story from Tolkien's lore, and I feel it's in the same genre, although a lot less egregious than the mountain of skulls inside the Paths of the Dead, for example. I think it's Jackson's comedy chops coming back, where he just like does over the top comedy, physical comedy, and it's a small, very tiny version of that. I understand it's not that over the top, but I think that I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, me neither. All right, we are
okay.
On. We're done. Two changes this week, guys. We're going to move into our extended edition now, which you can get by becoming a supporter at theoneweek.com/members/memberworks. I think even /patron will work. But yeah, join us on Discord, get the extended podcast where we're going to talk about the changes that maybe they should have made to the films, like dwarves in Bag End before meeting Gimli.
The
Like-
original dwarves. Yeah.
Like seeing the post office overrun with envelopes for the party.
Could have been cool.
Join us there, guys. Thanks for joining us this week. I know it's a little more brief again this week, but we'll be diving into more things in the future. And we will have that special Christmas treat from Austin Robertson, who read us the poem Noel for last week's episode. And the video that you can find just by looking up Noel Tolkien pretty much on any search engine. And we're one of the first couple of links there. But yeah, we'll be having that, I believe, the Wednesday after Christmas, if I'm not mistaken.
And so we are recording one more time before Christmas, you and I?
We are recording one more time before Christmas, and then we'll
Right.
be having that one on Christmas day after Christmas. Is it Monday, right? Yes, good.
Monday, yes, good.
All right. Let's jump into the extended edition, guys.
All right. Have a blessed Advent, freeloaders. Bye-bye.